moved. It just hasn't stopped.
Right. So every episode, one after the other, think about how many we've done.
And I know, like, speaking for Josh and I, we do sometimes two of them at the same time. So it can be, while we're not there every day, and I commend the, Sarit's department, because they got to deal with this stuff every day. We come in and out of those, but we do two, sometimes three shows at a time. So the hours, sometimes you are sleeping in a parking lot just to be on, set the next day on time.
And also there's changes, because you'll think you have a day shoot, and then weather dependent or crossover, and they'll change it. Then they'll change it to a night shoot. So everything.
Or a character change, which happens to us all the time, and it's. You're building these pieces and stuff, we're getting these prosthetics ready for a character, or Cerise designing a makeup, and they go, yeah, it'll play on Friday. Okay, cool. And you have this in your head that I've got 4 days or something. And then all of a sudden a new one-liner that comes out every half hour, a new one-liner comes out and you go, oh no, that plays tomorrow. Oh, so now you just have to switch gears and figure out how the hell to do it.
But the other thing that's unique about these shows is that, as you say, so much of it takes place at night, and a lot of it is location-based as well. And, here in the New York area, which, I remember thinking when we had that snow a couple of weeks ago, I said, I wonder what Josh and Sarita are doing right now, which is sort of a dopey thing, but I just thought, because I know you're probably outside.
Well, yeah, no,
that was a snow day. The recent one 2 weeks ago, they actually, first time. Those 5 shows that they shut down production.
Yeah, we were in for Punisher one day. There was that really bad snowstorm about a month ago.
Well, no, it was before the bad storm. It was before the one where they actually canceled Thanksgiving for a day.
It was a horrible snow day, and the city was shut down, and we were waiting, and they're like, no, the actors will be in the trailer in a little while. We're like, are you guys adding? The crew is wiping out, the city's closed down, but no, we'll keep shooting. It's good, we'll keep shooting.
The most fun is when you have a company move when there's snow out. Good luck.
Let's sort of start at the beginning of this, because I always thought that Daredevil was the show that it not only started the series of these Marvel shows, but in a way it sort of created the way you guys were going to approach all of them from a production point of view. So that was the one where you were really learning all your lessons as far as how you guys were going to shoot these things, wasn't it?
Well, although Marvel and Netflix have those 5 shows, I view each show as a standalone show, because the showrunner is involved in different ways. For instance, the showrunner of Jessica Jones loves hair and makeup, so she's more involved in the look. For instance, one day I'll get a note, is Jessica Jones' eyeliner 25% thicker? Things like that. So you need to adjust to the showrunner's involvement. Stephen DeKnight, for instance, loves blood. So on Daredevil, we had so many times on that show. So although you're saying that the overall production is the same, it's not. Every show is a standalone. Color palette, stylized.
Going back to even what you were touching on a little bit with the question was, when Sarit actually got the call for Daredevil, so she started getting it set up and then called me to come and help. It was basically, I looked at her to that beginning and say, okay, so what's the idea? What are we doing? And Sarit and I started talking, and I saw the way she wanted to be able to run characters, and said, okay, so that's, I think, where we figured out how to start this dance between the departments. So it's really, she initially set that pace for what we were going to do for the rest of the shows, and then we've just carried it. And it now just kind of, like I said, it's this, we've gotten to the point that when you can work with people long enough, I call it the dance. I know where she's going to be in 2 minutes. I know where Brian's going to be next in 2 minutes. He knows when my arm comes. It's that dance. It's that
a well-oiled machine in a way.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So she had this great idea of how we get the shows rolling and how characters roll timing-wise, and then we just took it from there. And it's sort of morphed into its own monster, right? Make it the worst I can. You know what I'm saying? We try, and Brian and I always have discussions about this. After we have our makeup meeting, Brian and I will always discuss, well, where do we think we should take this? But it gives us a little freedom, and as far as I offer decapitated heads, we offer more stuff to the scripts that they end up picking. Because you just got to get to a point that you realize you've only got 7 days to shoot this episode, and we only maybe have 3 days to prep. So we've become very inept at pumping out decapitated heads in a week or less than a week, and we're not pulling anything with full punched hair, fully. I mean, everything like that. But we try to make it just like we would do for a film, and a lot of times we'll even offer them, let's take it to the peak that we can take it, and then we'll do a little cleaner version for you if you want it. But usually, like Sarit was saying, they're like, blood, go, you know, if we
Funniest
can.
thing is when they asked Josh, do you have a burnt torso at home?
Those are the questions I always get. Do you have a burnt kid in your attic? No, I don't.
We've actually built more stuff than actually we've seen. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that does get, not, a lot of it's mainly for time. Never for excessive gore, but there's also a lot of times where you'll have someone from production and higher up the food chain than we are will come over with that blood and pour it even more on. So it's encouraged. And a guy like me, I love my blood.
There's just so many chefs involved. There's Marvel, there's Netflix, there's a producer, there's a showrunner. Everybody has a say. I don't know who has the last word, but
I'll say this: we've been lucky. They don't. I haven't ever felt like they've asked us to like restrain anything at all. I really feel. I mean, sure, you know, like I said, there's guidelines. We're not going to be, you know, throwing dead babies at the camera or anything like that. But I don't feel like we've ever been. I feel like that they've come at us and said, "Let's go," you know, "Let's do this," you know. So that's what
they're open to our ideas also.
Yes,
which is great,
very
you
open
know.
ideas. Yeah.
Josh, you were saying that before, well, I'm going to try to anticipate. I don't know what side of the face it's going to be, so I'll do both sides of the face. Do you guys sort of anticipate them saying, you know, coming out of the blue and saying, you know, it would be really great, and this way, if you have something done, you don't get caught out?
I have a great example for that. So, season 2 of Daredevil, Elektra gets this massive tear across her stomach, right? So we made this, we saw the fight sequence, we saw how the sword came, we saw everything. I put this big prosthetic across her, she's opened up, we're ready to go. Marvel comes in and goes, yeah, the sword went the other way. And we all just went dead silent in this room, and I went, no it didn't. And we started showing references, and they were like, nope, the wound's gotta go the other way. She was walking the set to get shot. So it's at that moment we went, oh, the hell with it, just stand there. And we ripped it off. And that's why I always have 2 and 3 pieces for me. We ripped it off, flipped it. And then as we were ripping this prosthetic off, I went, can't wardrobe just switch the shirt? Isn't that, oh, fuck it, go. But
I was going to say, that's I'm sure you guys have all had this before, the director with the great idea. It's like on the day or the morning, you know, they say, wouldn't it be great if, and, you know, most makeup people that I know have been in the business for a while say, you never say no if you possibly can. You might talk them into something else, but you can't really sort of say no.
I know Cerise the same way I am, and Brian's the same way I am, where if we're doing, like Brian just said, so like we have something coming up with a fight sequence, a guy's gonna get beat up. So we know we need a cut in it as well. But I'll make 5 cuts, 4 nicks, 2 swells, a cut throat, a burned head, whatever. And then if we have the time.
But even if things are approved, they can change on the day.
But that's what I'm saying. So if we have this stuff at least in our kit, we can say, all right, switch it up. And they've thrown you for a loop a million times. You know.
I have an interesting story. It didn't happen on the day, but for those who watch Iron Fist, the first 2 episodes, Finn, Danny Rand, has a really big beard. He's supposed to be homeless. This is his real hair that he's grown for months. Episode 3, we need to groom his beard, shorter beard. He's, you know, more cleaned up. Cut to, we're shooting episode 4. I get an email from the producer. How do you feel about reshooting scenes from episode 101 and 102? I know he has a longer beard. I just laughed at that email. I just said, we need to talk. So what ended up happening, we did do that. Time constraint of a few days. We had to.
Like they were going to reshoot it in a month. They were going to.
No, it was a few days later. So obviously he can't grow his beard, and we're still shooting him with a short beard for the rest of the show. So after a few tests, we actually put a full non-custom made beard on top of his existing beard. and we reshot those scenes, which I saw. Thank God you can't see the difference, but that was a big challenge.
I was in the makeup room. I was in the makeup room with her when they called and mentioned that, and I actually looked at her on the phone, and she just kind of went white for a second.
I couldn't believe this.
I don't.
I've never had to do that before.
That's always the problem, isn't it? Because you guys know, probably all you guys know, you probably spot a fake beard a mile away, and the thing is, it takes you right out of the scene, because then you're looking and you go, no, I wonder how much of that doesn't match up. So if it's not perfect.
It was very intricate. I mean, when you put a beard on top of a beard, first of all, you have to make sure that it stays on, which is another story we can talk about, Luke Cage. But we had to cut the fake beard we had to dart it and put it in, and we found this technique that if you color the lace and you did it under, it worked fine. But it was trial and error, and we did a few tests until we got it right in a week.
And going back to what we were talking about with teamwork earlier, Brian is really famous for, like, even if he's sitting there gluing a prosthetic on, there was many days he would reach his hand up and just help with the beard too. So yeah, it's like one hit, right?
I mean, I look at this, we're all a team. Like, somebody has their job, but I think we all work together. But going back to like how we were talking how things changed, there was an episode of a show that we're doing now, contractual, I can't tell you, but it was a lot of blood, and it was one of those things where it was, we built certain things, but we definitely went above and beyond with the blood flow, and the director just played with it for the whole episode. So we have a lot of changes and a lot of fun. I mean, again, we should also say that we have a hard job, and I do think we have a very, very hard job, but we also have a really good time too. Like, we're making, superheroes for a living. I think that's kind of cool.
The one night, it was on season 2 of Daredevil, I'm standing on the roof of a building, you were there with me, there was Daredevil, the Punisher in full garb, Elektra, 50 Nazis, Jesus Christ. 50 ninjas, a guy on a zip wire, and an explosion. And I just turned around and I went, this is the greatest night of my life. This is superheroes. So we don't sleep, we smell bad sometimes. But
sometimes you pinch yourself when you see where you're at. You see the views of the city, 4 o'clock in the morning, on the rooftop. We kind of get to do some fun shit every now and then.
I'm sorry about the Nazi thing.
Well, the most interesting thing that just came out of that was the fact that Josh Turry doesn't know the difference between ninjas and Nazis.
You should read the comics I read.
So now you know why they're doing reshoots.
You should read the extras.
So I was back. I have a terrible admission, and I know Sarit's gonna hammer me for this. I still haven't gotten Netflix, but I was over in London over Christmas time, and Jessica Jones season 1 was actually out on DVD. So of course I bought it. I binge watched it because I'd been looking forward to this since we'd been talking about it. And the thing that really strikes me, I mean, Jessica's a great show. The thing that really strikes me, though, is your leading actress really, excuse my French, sometimes looks like shit. And this is a testament to your abilities and your team, because you know what it's like. Normally the leading actress has to look fantastic, and you have to make her look beautiful, and she's got lip gloss and stuff. And Jessica really does not look good a lot of the time, and I thought there must have been a lot of discussions between you and your actress and your showrunner and every other person. Is how are we going to make her look for this entire season? And so I would love you to talk about that a little bit.
She just doesn't sleep at night, and she comes to work and she's ready. Well, obviously this was more of a noir feel of the show, and what they were trying to do is make this character as grounded, as real as possible. You don't have a superhero running with high heels saving people. So the showrunner for the show is what I said before, Melissa Rosenberg, likes to get involved, literally sometimes hands-on with the hair and makeup. Hair is in the front, the eyeliner, things like that. So she wanted invisible makeup throughout the whole show. And sometimes you need to put a lot of makeup on to make an invisible makeup look. So we did do a few tests on Kristen look, Jessica Jones, and believe it or not, she has nothing on her lips. The way they lit it, they also use these film lenses, vintage lenses from the 1970s to make it look that way. So we did a few tests to see how the makeup's going to look in this specific lighting. So sometimes the colors pop, and that is teamwork, collaboration between me and Manuel, the DP. So to create her invisible makeup, she does obviously have some makeup on, but she doesn't have any eyeshadow on. And the black liner, if it's smudged, we smudge it more. You know, so there was a lot of discussion, and to see what looks like she has no makeup on. It's just tests and tests until they approve it. And yes, of course, there was a discussion with me and Kristen to see what she's comfortable with.
What was she comfortable, or what did she want to see as far as her character?
She likes to have makeup on, but she understands that when she needs to look shitty, but no present. She's not a huge fan of dirt and blood, especially on her face. And sometimes she feels like she prefers acting the part rather than putting the stuff on. So, you know, every scene was, what do you feel comfortable with? So specific cuts were in specific places that she felt comfortable with. Like, you don't see anything on her nose or anything in the beauty zone, Marvel likes to call it. They prefer not to do it there so it won't distract the audience.
The thing that I quite like as well is you've got, you know, this is your lead character, and yet there's such a disparity between her look and, say,
Trish.
Jerry Hogarth or Patsy, these really beautiful, glamorous women, you know, who their glam is actually part of their character. So there's a wonderful difference between those characters.
That was fun because each character shows the feel of their real character. For instance, you know, Patsy's glamorous look is still natural. You know, she doesn't have all these fake lashes and these lip glosses and things like that. So this is another conversation with Marvel. Everything has to do with their approval and a concept meeting and tests and more emails and more tests and more emails.
I will say this, for me, when we started with Marvel, the hardest thing in the world for me to get used to was that approval process, because it's just this massively corporate approval process where I have to send a rough sculpture in, and then 14 people have to discuss that, come back at me, then send a mid sculpture in, they discuss it, and we just do it like that. So everything. I mean, lip gloss, a little cut which in theory could be a week's worth of emails, but we only have a couple of days, you know? So it's that approval process that we go through for everything. And then even, there's times Brian and I have been on set and put a piece on someone, and
You need to send pictures.
Like those, it's the hardest when the piece is approved. Everything is approved, but then has to be reapproved, you know. But it's also, you have an AD yelling at you to be on set right now, but they're still waiting for just, you know, however technology works in the airwaves, that to get to LA for someone to answer that question. And if someone is using the bathroom when that question needs to be answered, like, you know, you're standing there. There's always a hurry up and wait game.
And it's never the guy in the bathroom's fault. It's usually my fault, or it's usually her fault, or his fault.
It's also when they ask us, what's your time estimate?
It's always Brian's fault.
They ask for time estimates, so we give them a rough time estimate, because who knows how long it's going to take to be approved.
Does that, like, bearing in mind that you're only going to have a certain amount of time, does that help sort of say, well, you know, you have to decide this in 2 days because, you know, they're going to be on set with it in 2 days. So even though, you know, there's a lot of toing and froing, do you ultimately get your decision by the time you need it? Or are you sort of showing up on set going...
There's been times it's been real close. Let's put it that way.
I try to get as much information as I can in advance, whether it's days in advance and sometimes the morning of, because I know how they can change their mind. There's always a Marvel representative on set that him or her and I communicate constantly by text. If there's somebody in my chair, oh, I know that you said in the hair and makeup meeting you wanted this guy scruffy, but is this the look you're thinking of? And I send pictures and I wait for their approval, then I continue from there.
But I just really, I know it sounds like we're like, or at least me, it sounds like I'm bitching, but I'm not. I still get to play with blood and superheroes all day, so whatever. Take as long as you want to approve something. But
mind you, you don't know the difference between ninjas and Nazis, so...
But, Joe, listen, I always say this to people. There's a reason I glue shit to people's faces. I'm not a smart man.
Well, okay. How much was there in terms of makeup effects and prosthetics on Jessica, as opposed to what you guys have just done on Daredevil? Because
Daredevil was a lot heavier just because of the massive amount of fight sequences and stuff like that. Jessica Jones, you know what? We didn't do as much smaller prosthetics as much as we did like a few decapitated heads, and we had 2 burned corpses. We had Kilgrave's mother that every time we saw her had a burn scar on her. So amount-wise, it wasn't as many prosthetics as say Daredevil, but I think what we put forth was more noticeable prosthetics. More
Character-based makeups.
Yeah, more character-based stuff. Yeah.
I remember you telling me about Kilgrave's mother and how we don't get the reveal to the end. And every time she was in an episode, I was almost like looking around the TV to see, because it was sort of obscured on the side. Where is it? I want to see it.
They would have the hair in front of her, or they would have her sitting behind something cleverly. And there were little things that every now and then they would show it, kind of. And you would think something's there, but they would never focus on anything long enough.
But you were putting the prosthetics on her, though. Just because we didn't see them, they're still there.
Oh yeah. We put that thing. Not only did we put it on her, but then there were days that we would put the prosthetic on her, a stunt double, a photo double, and by the time you got to the photo double, it was just hand painted. There was no more glue. But yeah, even when the whole thing. What was the whole thing in the war? Right?
Well, yeah, we had a photo double, a stunt double, and the actual actress. And then again, it's if we're gonna see it. That's a whole other issue. She was laying face down practically.
She was laying face down in 2 inches of water for that whole sequence, but we still had everything on her. The poor lady, but she was a trooper through it, man. She was a trooper through that whole thing, yeah.
I don't think she was thinking to herself, I get to be in a superhero thing with blood like you do, though.
But, we were told, or at least I was told from the beginning with Marvel, they said to me on Daredevil, I was like, well, we need to get a life cast of Charlie just so we have it so we don't have to worry. And they said to me, we're never going to put prosthetics on his face. We don't ever want to cover our leads. I said, all right. So it works with Jessica, but as far as Daredevil, Luke, and the other guy we're working with now, and even Iron Fist, we covered those guys in pieces, but they kept telling us we're never going to put prosthetics on our leads, and then we covered the leads of prosthetics. Yeah.
So did you guys have like a little bit of a head start on Luke Cage in that the character his look had been sort of introduced in Jessica Jones, or did that not, it's like you got so much other stuff to do, it sort of doesn't matter.
Are you asking about?
Did you have a bit of a head start with Luke Cage in terms of you already basically had your lead actor for that? His look was sort of created in Jessica Jones.
His basic look was created. 2 things I will say though. Episode 4 of Luke Cage, we had a whole episode of flashbacks of him in jail and his backstory. Those were beards that we had to design and prep 2 months in advance because they were custom made. So that was a lot of prep for that episode. Also, the light was different in Luke Cage. He was using more 1970s, again, different vintage lenses and gels that he used in front of his lights to get more of the vibrant colors of Harlem. So I had to adjust my color palette for Mike himself when we got to Luke Cage. Which was another test to get all the colors pop on the different skin tones, things like that.
Even though all the shows take place sort of in the same time, in the same area, they're trying to give each one its own look, And then the origin, hell, that you and I were in. There's a whole sequence in Luke Cage with the origin of him.
Also episode 4.
Also
episode 4. Are you talking about the bear in the water?
It was in the water, yeah.
Yeah, there was a day, it was a holiday, and Josh and I were there, and we had to put a beard on top of his existing goatee, and he had to be in water, in a tank full of water for 8 hours.
Well, not just water. We had the beard, we had three prosthetics up the side of his head, and he was in salt water, for like hot salt water for 12 hours. And we just sat there, her and I, Sri and I
Wait, and he was also eating salsa and egg salad.
Oh, he's eating, there's egg salad and everything. I would yell at her, I'd go, Sri, he's got the egg salad again, get him. because he would just be dripping. So her and I are just sitting on set, just watching monitor going, it's coming off. It's
But
coming
it
off.
didn't. You know, when it came off the last shot, just before they said wrap, I saw a mustache pop up.
Yeah,
That's it. The whole day it managed to last.
The
All that
prosthetic
stuff all
started floating.
stayed the entire day.
All of it stayed the whole day.
Everything stayed.
I mean, we did touch-ups, but
I had
yeah.
one little tiny breach in the corner of an eye that started getting some water under it, so we just got him out, pulled it. I literally started shoving cotton and Q-tips under it to pull the water out, and we were able to get it down. But you know, when you lay submerged in salt water after a while, things are going to start to go. You know?
I went through a whole KD glue bottle that day.
You guys were saying at the beginning of this that to some extent the series takes its lead from the showrunner. So in terms of the look and the tone, what sort of differences were made for Luke Cage as far as the makeup and makeup effects?
Well, they're all loosely based on the comic books. Obviously, the background story, which some shows we've seen more of, Jessica Jones we've seen less, and I think in season 2 they're going to explore it more. The color palettes are different from each show, right? Daredevil has more of the red color palette. Jessica Jones, which is more the noir feel, is more purple. You know, in the comic books, it's Purple Man. She has purple hair, which she obviously doesn't have in the show. And Luke Cage, I think it was more like the yellow color palette, so that was collaboration with the production designer and the costume designer, and me after that. So he's wearing a lot of mustard colored shirts, and just the feel of Harlem was looking different than Hell's Kitchen, which is Daredevil Jessica Jones. So it's more of a yellow palette, so I had to adjust, you know, the ladies' lip colors pop more. And what they're doing is so they use these gels to make people's skin glow. I've had so many people comment on Instagram and in personal life, how did you make his skin glow? So it's also makeup and it's also the lighting.
I know I'm looking at my watch because I think, damn, we got so much stuff to still cover. So I want to skip ahead to a little bit to Iron Fist because Josh, you have to tell the story of the tattoo, which I think we covered a little bit of in our Makeup Artist magazine story, but since some of you guys probably haven't seen it, tell the story of the tattoo. You guys know, well, you know what the tattoo is, right? Okay.
So Danny Rand has the sign of the Iron Fist on him, which is the dragon tattoo. So we start discussing this dragon tattoo. So before we build anything, we had a week-long discussion on, is it a tattoo? Is it a scar? Is it both? And the 2-hour meeting I had on the benefits of it being both, it's just insane what we sat through. So we start going. So they decide, well, we want to make it a tattoo. Fine. Marvel sends me the original drawing. I take it, process it, turn it into a tattoo. We do our first test. Okay, can we make it a half-inch bigger? Sure. Test number 2. Test number 3, can we make it a quarter of an inch wider? Sure. Test number 3 and 4. 27 tests. By the time we got to the 27th test for this chest piece, it was green to blue to black to orange to polka dot to 7 inches, 6 inches, 5 inches. It was flipped. At one point, it was a pelican. It was like, it just kept...
You put your foot down. That's when you said enough, right?
Yeah, I finally, at the 27th, I said, look, we're done. You guys got to make a decision on this. So last day with the test, the color gets approved, the transparency gets approved, everything gets approved. We go to set the next day, we slap it on Finn the first time. Yay, here's the Iron Fist. Some guy from Marvel comes down and goes, shouldn't it be a scar? And it was at that point that I just passed out right on the floor and I almost punched that guy in the face. So what we ended up doing was to sort of, as the 29th test, I ended up taking the tattoo itself, and after we printed them out, I was taking Bondo. I mean, everybody here know what Bondo is? It's a thick and prosaic. And with a stipple sponge and going in and sculpting texture on the back of the tattoo just to give it some little meatiness. And then we would, so once we transferred that tattoo on, there would be little high points, little texture to it. So in essence, the 29th time we put that thing on was when we finally got it set up. And it just went. And then when we got to the Defenders, the first director of the Defenders was like, yeah, I totally want to get rid of the tattoo. And I just turned to her and I was like, I quit, that's it, you did it, you killed me.
I'm not sure what I find sort of more bizarre about the statement, the fact that we could have been looking at a pelican tattoo all this time, or the notion of a director that thinks you can actually just remove a tattoo.
Yeah, well, they wanted, the first director, she wanted, during a fight sequence, they wanted a sword to slice the tattoo in half. And I was like, cool, whatever you want, but after that meeting, I called up the Marvel guys and I was like, are you guys sure you want me to destroy the Iron Fist logo? And they were like,
interesting. Directors come who are not involved with the show. They're newcomers. We've been there for 3 years. We know the Marvel process, the approval process. They just want to change stuff. You're like, hold on.
Yeah, and
let's talk.
So when I said that to them, like, you sure you want me to rip apart? And they were like, don't do anything. Just forget she said it. I was like, all right, forgotten. I'm good.
Does that happen a lot though? You say like directors will come in and go, maybe it shouldn't be green, maybe it should be purple, just for the sake of changing it.
They do, but if it's already established, there's nothing. It has to maintain its continuity.
So that's where this whole approval process actually works in your favor then.
Right, and also every hair makeup meeting we have for an episode, we bring pictures. I bring pictures from what was established in previous episodes. They need to figure out, or together with me, we'll figure out what's it going to look like in this episode. Some superheroes have more healing power than others. So is it going to disappear or is it going to fade?
Oh, just touching on the continuity thing really quick too. The tattoo, so they were so nervous about it, obviously always being in the same place, never moving this net. So what Brian and I did one day was we had Finn come in, and does everybody know what I mean if I say a bubble? If we take a bubble off of someone, it's what they do to make a wig. They put cellophane on and tape it, it takes the shape of someone. Well, what we did was we took a bubble of Finn's chest, put the tattoo on, put the bubble back over, and traced all that out. So now we had a template that every day Finn came in, right? We would just lay that bubble on his torso, put a couple of points, take that off, and then we made a vacuum form template also, put that on, traced it, and then put the tattoo on. It's that continuity thing.
The other thing is we asked, could we get a bubble? And they told us we had no time. So we miraculously found the time to get that, because that was very important, because actually the first time we used that method where we put our bubble over and measured up, someone did come in and say, is it a little off? And we could prove that it was never going to be a little off.
Do you remember the nipple conversation? We had an entire half-hour conversation on distance from nipple to nipple with 2 Marvel executives. Best conversation I've ever had.
And that was Josh and I standing together.
That was just us talking.
I mean, this had nothing to do with the show.
Brian and I talk about nipples a lot.
Wait, are these Finn's nipples, or are we talking about somebody? All right. I was going to say, we didn't really want to delve too heavily into that. How much makeup and makeup effects, respectively, is there in Iron Fist as opposed to the previous shows? Because you start off with DareDevil, for example, which is quite violent with that that sort of red palette. Where does Iron Fist sort of fit into that sort of look?
I would just like to say one of my favorite makeups from the shows, and I'm not saying this just because she's sitting here. There's a character on the show called Madame Gao.
That's my favorite.
I would just like to say it's a makeup they've done that Cerise done for every show. It's one of my favorite makeups, so you should tell them about Madame Gao.
I have some of my girls here that has helped me throughout the last few years. Madame Gao, who you've seen in Daredevil, and in Iron Fist, she's, I think, my favorite character from Marvel to create, because she's a non-prosthetic 2-person process, which we use the WM Creations Old Age Stipple. So one person needs to stretch and I stipple. And every skin particle that you see is covered in the Old Age Stipple. From here all the way down to here. Obviously when she wears gloves, then
she's the coolest lady on the planet.
White Ching Ho is the best. So that's the process, and then we hand paint old age spots all over her. What's the question? I missed the question. What was the question?
No,
makeup effects, yes. So obviously I can just talk about the makeup. So we have Madame Gao there in Iron Fist, which she was in a lot, so that was a lot of fun. We also had more hair laying on the show than we did on Jessica Jones or Daredevil. But just remember that whenever we have a character that has facial hair, we need to have the stunt person as well. The stunt people that come we obviously collaborate or we get the information from the stunt team, but we sometimes have to hand lay a beard, or we have to paint if we know that they're not going to see it. So that's something that we always have to take into consideration when they cast a specific person. Is he going to need a bald cap? Is he going to need a beard? Is he going to need, different skin tone? Luke Cage's, Mike Coulter's stuntman, his skin color is a few shades lighter every single time we had to paint him, and we had to put, facial hair on him as well.
I presume also that some of this stuff becomes more problematic because of the technology today. Because like when you look at the stuff on a Blu-ray, it's so crystal clear that you can't get away with the tricks that you used to be able to get away with. And certainly
screens are bigger. You see every little pore.
Requires more hand laying of hair, things like that.
Yeah, you just have to be very detail oriented and make sure. Just so you know, we don't get to see dailies, and usually the monitor that we see on set, we have to go close and just look at it. Or sometimes we're in the back because we have all the Marvel, Netflix, showrunner people in the front. So on Defenders, I convinced them to finally let me see dailies that I can get, on my computer every day. But we were going blind for 4 shows, trusting that last looks was enough.
There's no getting around those cameras nowadays. It's just, it picks up everything. So it's just, every time you put something on, you're just
Lace,
like,
everything has to
and you have that stomach ache till you see it, Yeah.
Josh, you mentioned, in addition to working with Sarita on these shows, that you were also doing The Punisher. And this is one of those, it's obviously not come out, but I'm just sort of curious in general terms, how graphic or, how makeup effects heavy is that series?
I'm going to let Brian take most of this, just because Brian spent more time on set than I have on this one. This one's been one of the busier ones for us, so I've been in the shop almost the whole episode, still building. Him and I are still on set, applying most of the stuff together, but a lot of the stuff that's been going on, I have him handle for us. I think it's one of the bloodiest shows yet for us.
It's The Punisher. That's enough said. It's The Punisher, so it's definitely bloodier. While we handle a certain aspect, we have a wonderful team over there, and they're also just as busy as we are.
Some of them are sitting right up here too, right?
So, but it's totally a little bit more prosthetics, a little bit more blood, a lot more blood, and I'm thinking it's going to deliver what the fans want out of like a Marvel, Netflix Punisher show.
It's been heavy, and the showrunner on Punisher, we've just been building constantly around the clock. And Brian and I, we do what we call shady handoffs. We'll meet on the Palisades Parkway somewhere. Here's another box of prosthetics. Go. It's just because it's just a constant run. It's a constant run. So it's been we've cut a lot of heads off. Right? We've cut a bunch of heads off. We just
episode. Just wait till the end of that season, not the last episode, but there's a couple real bloody episodes.
And
it's totally gonna be.
The other thing we're really lucky about is John, who plays the Punisher, loves blood, and
there literally isn't it is now referred to as mouth blood on set. John Berthenol drinks mouth blood.
Yeah.
He does his own sweat spray, and he carries bottles of blood in his pocket.
And we'll go
every time in between a scene and just devours that. I don't know what his intestines look like. I don't want to know, but he definitely consumes more blood than I've ever seen.
His intestines are red. Yeah, they but even if we're on set with something, we're going to put blood on something. One of the Marvel people will be like, "That's enough. We'll wait," and John will go. Once they walk away, John will go, "Dump it." And we're like, "All right." But yeah, this one's heavy. I'll say every episode. There were shows like even there were J-Day. There was an episode or two. Maybe we only had one little piece. This one for us has been a massive list. Every episode.
Just before we go any further, because I know there's a couple of people out here in the audience that have been working with these guys. I'm just curious, how many of you have been working on those shows that are sitting here? You guys want to give them a big, give them a big hand while they're sitting up there. That we won't shame you by bringing you on stage, but at least we could clap for you there. So.
You can tell the people that work for Marvel because they all have that dead, soulless look in their eyes after a while.
Yes, I think I recognize it.
And pale skin from working in the basement.
Yeah, exactly.
So that really brings us to Defenders, and I know you probably can't say much about that because it's not come out yet.
Everybody dies. Everybody
Right.
dies, and that's it. It's over.
Okay, you guys aren't going to go home and post that, are you? But the thing I'm sort of curious about, going back to, Sarit, this is something you said about the color palettes. So if these various characters have their respective color palettes and tones, how do you reconcile them all when they're in the same show together, or do you come up with a whole different color palette and a different sort of visual aesthetic for this show?
Well, they tried to keep the color palettes, at least with the clothes, when they're all together. That's pretty much what I can say about that. I did adjust a little bit with the lighting, but again, I mean, these characters are already established, so I did use the same makeup, but sometimes if it's specific lighting, if it's a darker basement or a darker rooftop, so I will adjust the color palette per superhero, per character on the day, but it stayed the same as I established before.
Brian, actually, it's funny you say pal. Brian and I have a little joke. You know how some of the makeup palette companies will do custom color palettes for people? Well, we said we're going to have a Marvel one done for us that's going to be
Black, red.
blood, black, and green screen. That would be the whole palette.
So do the characters, do the looks at you, because the interesting thing is you basically established the looks for all these key characters, which is why you stayed with the first season of all the shows. Have the characters more or less maintained their look now for Defenders, or have you made sort of a little adjustments for them?
Well, what I can say is, in general, yes, but there's also a lot of new characters in Defenders. Well, some of you already know Sigourney Weaver was in Defenders. So she has a specific look that I designed. And I can't really talk about the other characters, but yes, most the superheroes do stay the same in the color palette, yeah.
So I mean, I know you know, the Sigourney Weaver character is a bit of a mystery, but tell me about working with her on this, because I mean, you know, we're talking about, you know, the genre geeks in us, and now you bring in.
Well, I just want to say that I'm going to talk for Brian and I, because when we heard they were bringing Sigourney in, him and I just were 11 years old again, and we're like, is she here? Where is she? And we're like sneaking around trying to find her, you know. But then it goes back to what we said, that the best part about our job is we still get to be 12.
I mean, I knew in advance that Sigourney is going to be cast in that part. Jeff Loeb actually came and talked to me about that while we were still shooting Iron Fist. And he said, are you comfortable doing her makeup? I said, hell yeah, I've been her fan since, 4 decades. So I've had an amazing experience, and we're friends to this day. The interesting thing with her is that we talked a lot. We actually had a makeup consultation in her apartment before the test, just to get to know each other, to meet and greet, and to see what she likes to use and what she doesn't. Then we had the hair makeup test for the character on set. And we didn't get any of that feedback. It was all, she looks great, and she was to shoot a few days later. So the experience was great. I mean, blood and all that thing she was really comfortable with.
But she's also, if I recall, she's had a personal for a lot of years, so is she more or less happy to put herself in your hands on this?
We had a really nice conversation, and I talked a little bit about myself, and she gave me a lot of good compliments about the show. She's watched DareDevil and Jessica Jones. She said, I love your work. I'm very happy to work with you. That's how it started, and I got her to meditate. She started meditating.
So what happens now? You guys are sort of coming up to the end of these respective shows. Because it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of, having, to start to prep these things. Up until now, you've pretty much known, what was going to be coming up next. So what's coming up next?
Well, it's as if the root of the tree is set in the first 5 shows, and now all the little branches are popping out. So what's known to the public is Jessica Jones Season 2, Luke Cage Season 2, Daredevil Season 3. Iron Fist Season 2 has not been picked up yet, but it has not been
announced yet.
So that's pretty much what they want to do. I mean, there's little rumors about, Elka in the future, Doors the Dragon, all these things, collaborations, Heroes for Hire. Who knows if that's going to be? But I think their plan is to just continue, take it as far as they can.
I mean, I don't know. We started JJ season 2. I don't know if we're allowed to say it, but I'm saying
Yeah,
we started shooting season 2 of Jessica Jones.
So this is probably a rhetorical question, going back to what we've been sort of talking about all along. But normally working on these sort of shows at this pace, there's a pretty high burnout factor. I get the sense that even though you guys, there's probably times where you're sort of burned out. I sort of get the sense that these shows are really bringing out the best out of you in terms of what you guys like to do. I don't sort of get the sense that you're like, well, I'm done with my superheroes. It's time to go do a drawing room comedy or something. I sort of get the sense this is where you all want to be.
Phone to Brian on this one because Brian's been doing a lot of night shoots.
All right, we're all burnt out. If you ask us that at the very last day of the episode, we give you a completely different answer. I'm going to say this. I'm like the newest guy up here as far as the union world. I mean, all I ever wanted to do was be a makeup artist, and now I'm a makeup artist that only wants a day off. So I think that kind of sums up our lifestyle. But, I mean, I'm going to ride this boat till I can. I mean, I'm thankful for Josh. He's so cool to keep me around. And just to watch Sarit and her team do her thing, their thing, it's just amazing. I mean, I'm new, so I'm going to stick with it. But these hours are ridiculous. I mean, it's it's completely and utterly. We don't sleep at all. But come on,
and
man.
we have no time off in between
Yeah,
shows.
there's no personal
I have 2
lives.
days off, and then you have prep.
Yeah.
But I will say that there's no way these shows can be done if you do not have a great team around you. Some of my shows, my teams have been consistent, and then switch around. But sometimes we have 3, 4, 5 people. Sometimes we have 6 if it's on Defenders is a bigger show. But you try to give people good turnarounds. Someone leaves early, comes late the next day. Once in a while, a day off here and there. So you try to make it comfortable for everybody.
I gotta say, I still feel very fortunate, even for me. So sometimes, like I said, I've been able to do a couple of shows at the same time. So I'm lucky in a way where, like, Sarit and her team, they're on set every single day of that shoot. So for us, sometimes we get a little bit more of a break where we can come away from set and be back in the shop. Even though we're still doing an 18-hour day in the shop, we're still not on set having to sit out in the elements as much as these guys are. But with that said, for me, it's like I said, we've been able to do a couple of shows at once and keep those running, and that's a little silly. We start crossing over sometimes, and scheduling kills me, and sometimes I wonder why I'm a glutton for this much punishment. But then at the end of the day, no matter how bad I felt or how crazy I was or how much sleep, I still turn around and go, nah, I got the greatest job on the planet, and that's what this is, and I don't care how tired I am. That's it.
Another thing is that Marvel likes to shoot 12-hour days. So there's so many other productions that will go 16, 18 hours, 21 hours, and then you're burnt out after day 2. Here you know that you'll have a 12-hour day, even though we have 3 calls. For crew, yes. But we have 3 calls, so we'll have a 13, 14-hour day. But again, you do turnarounds and you let people go early.
But to answer your question, it's very easy to get burned out, especially with episodic. Anybody here that works in episodic television will tell you it'll burn you if you let it, because it's a massively hectic schedule. It's a lot of hours. It's tiring.
A lot of night shoots.
A lot of nights. A lot of this. But TV's very fast, very fast. To give you an example, like you look at the call sheet for the day, and for an episode, we may shoot 11 pages of a script in a day or something. Whereas you go on a film, you're shooting half a page. So so episodic is a little easier to get burned out if you let it get you.
Another thing I will add, just one thing, is even though there's a night shoot and my call time will be 4 p.m., when I get up at 10 or 11, I have to answer emails for prep or things that they want to change same day, or things to talk about. Contact lenses is going to happen in a week, but they started a conversation that day, so I need to respond to it. So I'm kind of constantly working.
I think too, one of the positive things is their turnaround for getting the entire season out. It's pretty quick. So our hard work, you can see pretty quickly, and I think that's also
every
like
6 months,
it helps.
I think,
Yeah, it
is
helps
the one
us out quite a bit.
You can see from the young lady coming up on stage left that they're
Kicking
about
us
to
out.
push us out. Just before we leave, folks, I just want to let
I
you know.
really quick, I just want to say one thing.
Okay.
Just because I want to notice him. Sitting in the back row is Jeremy Salenfriend. Jeremy Salenfriend has stuck it out. He was
Hi,
season 1 of
Jeremy.
Daredevil. He's been there with us a bunch of times too. He's not a nice person, but he helps us out really well.
But he's neither a ninja or a Nazi. Just so you guys know, we're going to be doing a piece for the Makeup Artist magazine. It'll be coming out in the summer. We're actually going to go and visit Josh's shop in New Jersey, so you actually get to see where his new setup is.
You see my hot tub and all the good stuff.
I've been there. There's no hot tub. There is, however, a big Iron Fist tattoo on one wall. Anyway, listen, guys. Thanks so much for making this part of your day on Sunday, and thanks Sarit, Josh, and Brian for their time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys so much. Let's give them another hand. If you guys are special effects fans, you should definitely check out the museum. There's a lot of really cool items over there, and also check out the Makeup Artist magazine booth. In 15 minutes, we'll have the award.